Hello, in this video, we're going to use position absolute to absolutely position these numbers around this clock face, and also do some little clock hands using CSS Animations. So let's get to it. Before we start, the code is, you can get to it if you go to bit.ly/absolute-clock. And I will also put that in the description of this video. So once you download it, let me just clean up my mess here. Okay, once you download it, you can expand the zip file and then just drag it into any place where you want to work. So let me pull up the one I downloaded so we can start fresh. Add folder. Okay. All right, so here we go. Clock. Okay, I'm going to use this one. All right, so there is an example folder that has a completed clock in it. This index and style.css file are what we are going to work with. So let me close down this first. There we go, and then I'll restart it. So I'm going to restart by right-clicking. I'm using the live server extension for this, and I'm in Visual Studio Code. If you want to know more about setting up your software this way, I'll also put a link to the video in the description of this. I'm going to open this with live server just to get it running and see what we're starting with. All right, so what we have is, this is basically an image with a dark outline and a circle in the center where we're going to place our hands. And then below, if you scroll down, are all the numbers we're going to place, plus a minute hand and an hour hand. So let's talk a little bit about position absolute. So most of the time when you're on the web, you don't want to fight against the flow of the page. You want it to be flexible. You want it to be responsive. There are situations where you do want to be able to place things relative to maybe another object. So in this case, the clock face. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So the first thing is the clock. Let's see, the clock is here. Let's go look at the HTML again. So I have a main tag that encompasses everything. I have a div with a class called clock, and there's an image inside there that's just stretching to the width of that div. So we want everything to be positioned relative to this main box. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is turn on a border so we can see it. So I'm going to say border is 2 pixels solid. Let's make it red. Okay, so here's basically where the area where we're going to be positioning our clock. We want this to kind of be the parent of all of these other objects. So we want to add position relative to this one, which is basically saying, if any of my children want to be positioned absolutely, position them relative to me, versus if we didn't add this style, those objects would kind of keep going up the chain and would probably be positioned relative to the body of the entire web page instead of just this box. So this is why we're adding this one. And then we also want to add it to, I've added a few styles here. I have a class called number on each one of the numbers, and then they all have a second class that pertains to which number they are. These are in, they're like the spelled out number because you cannot have a class that starts with a number. So there are those. And then for the hands, for the minute and hour hands, I also added, let's add it right now, a hand class. So both minute and hour should also have hand. And that way we can basically just say if you find a class called hand, make it position absolute, and then we can be really specific about where we want the minute hand to be, where we want the hour hand to be. Okay, so in CSS, let's add to the number. Where did it go? There we go. Here's the number class. So I'm going to say position absolute. Absolute. And same thing for this hour class. So let's add that. Hour should be position absolute. Now, nothing is going to happen yet because we haven't told anything where to absolutely position itself. Let's start with the minute first. One thing, though, is I want to show you, as soon as we add this to all of those objects, they will kind of pile up into a big clump. Because they've been taken out of the flow of the page. So they're kind of like asking, they're waiting, like, where do you want me to go? So let's put them somewhere. So for the minute hand, I just drew lines. I'm going to, the minute hand is a vertical line. So I'm going to put it slightly less than 50% from the top. That'll get it really close to that center dot. And then same thing from the left. In practicing this, I found that this is about as close to the center as I can get. Oh, it didn't work. So let's figure out what's going on. Okay, we have hour has position. Oh, not hour, hand. It's because I'm typoing. There we go. Okay, so we've got that pointing to 6. And then for hour, let's do similar. So hour is a horizontal line. But I believe this top and left in the center is going to work the same here. Let's clean that up so we're not so messy. Okay, so those are the two hands. If you are not seeing those in place, make sure that you have added the class of hand. Where did we go? So this class of hand, it's got to be separated by a space. So hand here, and then make sure that you have all your semicolons. It's always good to check. We have a lot of yellow over here, which is basically Visual Studio Code saying you've like made these styles, but they have no properties or values yet. So we can ignore the yellow for now. But if you see any red, it may be a typo somewhere. So always check for those. All right, so let's start with the 12. So the easiest thing to do is to do 12, 3, 6, and 9. So I'm going to say top. I happen to know that 4% is pretty much the best option for top. But left will probably be something like 45%. Let's try that. Semicolon. Let's see how we're doing. Not too bad. Okay, let's do 6 because we can kind of take these values and swap the top for the bottom. So let's go to 6. Okay, so instead of top, I'm going to say bottom. And now you can see that I didn't quite hit it. So it looks okay with the 12, but maybe not so much for the 6. And if I inspect this, I can see exactly what value I should use. So I pulled up the inspect tool by right-clicking, or if you have a trackpad, you can 2-finger click, and then you can jump down to inspect. The other way to get there is by in Chrome, if you go to View, Developer, Developer Tools, you can also say Command Option I on a Mac or Control Alt I on a PC. All right, so here's our 6. I'm going to just right-click and inspect again to jump to it. There we go. And 45 isn't quite enough. Let's try 46, 47. 47 looks good. So I'm going to remember that this isn't actually changing the file. It's kind of temporarily changing it. If I do a Command R, if I refresh, it's going to go back to where it was. So it's just a temporary fix, but I'm going to change this to 47. And I bet, oh, that's the 12. I was going to say, I bet I should change the 12 as well, but I just did on accident. All right, so let's try the 3. I feel like these numbers are probably going to be what I want to use in all of the like 45-degree pieces, but instead of left, this is going to be, let's see, this will be right. So I'm 4% from the right side, and I'm 47% from the top. Let's see if that works. One thing about this is the reason why I'm using percentage is because if I tried to use pixels, I don't know how big my viewers' screens are. And if I use percentage, right now the numbers are staying the same size. We can talk about that in a bit. But things pretty much stay relative to their position on the clock face. So it's a good way to have a semi-responsive clock. I'm not too hip on 47. Let's try 46. This is the 45. All right, so I'm going to change that to 45. And now I'm going to do the 9 since it's on the opposite side. I'll just grab these numbers, go down to the 9. And instead of right, I'm going to change this to left. Okay, so here is our 9. Now I want to show you what happens if you don't add that position relative, just so you can kind of understand what's going on a little better. If I take that out, so main, I'm just going to comment it out. In Visual Studio Code, you can select what you want to comment. You can do Command /, and that will comment it out. And you can see that it looks sort of okay. The 12 and 6 look okay, but the 9 and 3 are way off because they're positioning relative to the entire screen, not just this box, not just this red box. So let's put that back, Command Z. There we go. Okay, so we've got the easy ones done, and now the others are just sort of like a bit of a slog to figure out, but 11 will probably be pretty close to the top, like 12%, and it's going to be a little bit from the left. I'm not sure. I'll just put 12 and 12. And then 10 is a little lower than that. So let's add 10 as well. And we can kind of figure out both at the same time. 20% left, 20%. Oops. All right, let's see where we've got. That looks terrible. All right, so let's inspect the 10 first. Okay, we're on the 10. So let's try, we want it way farther down, like 30%. And then over as well. Let's try 30, 30, see how close that gets us. Oh, I mean less, 10. Okay, seems too far still. Maybe 8. 8 looks good to me. So I can tell once we position the 11 that 10 probably isn't high, far up enough. So maybe something like 27. Is it far enough from the side? Probably. Okay, so I'm going to do 27 and 8. And that was 10. 27 and 8. Let's do the 11. And then we can kind of use them to do the 1 and 2. Okay, 11 should be farther to the left. Like 20. 20 looks pretty good, and maybe a little bit higher up. I need to shrink this down. Too close to the edge. A little bit. I may not go for perfection right now, just for the sake of speed, but I do want it to be a little bit farther over. All right, so we'll do 10 and 22 for the number 11. Okay, 10 and 22. Let's just make sure. Okay. Yeah, it looks close enough. All right, so now I'm going to do the 1 and 2, and I'm going to use 11 and 10 for my templates. So 11 will be similar to 1. So instead of left, I should be able to say right and get pretty close. Yeah, close enough. And then let's see, 20. I'm just going to like bump it over a little farther. And then the 10 will be close to 2. But instead of left, it will be right. Okay, let's check that out. Okay. Yeah, a bit weird. Needs to be a little higher and farther out. Let's see. Let's just try it in here. Maybe I can adjust the 10 as well. Let's get that up here. Number 2. So you need to be 25 maybe. And is that too far out? $25 and $11. Okay, let's do 2 and then we'll fix 10. $25, $11, and then same for 10. All right, so now that we have this done, we can use the same values for 1. Ugh, it's really far away. I'm going to pretend it's not. We can use the 1 values for the 5 and then just switch the top to the bottom. So let's do that. Please forgive that it's not perfect. Oops, I missed a semicolon there. Did you see that? Okay. This one will be 5. And we'll switch top to bottom. Cool. And then 2 and 4. It's so off, it's kind of killing me. I may have to pause and fix it. But here's 4. So instead of top, it will be bottom. And then, so same thing for 10 and 11. 10's going to match 8, 11's going to match 7. So 10 and 8. But instead of top, we'll do bottom. And then 11. Oh, there's that other semicolon I missed. And 7. Oh, what happened? Oh, I forgot to do the bottom. See, it's exactly where the 11 is right now. All right. The 7 needs to be bottom. Cool. Okay. I'm going to leave this as is. It's not perfect, but it's pretty close. And let's talk about moving these hands. So, let's talk a little bit about CSS Animations. If you go to W3 Schools and you look for CSS Keyframe Animation, you should come up to this page. So we're going to have a starting point and an ending point. You can use either from and to or percentages. And if you use percentages, you can have as many keyframes as you want. So if you've ever done traditional keyframe animation, this is really kind of the same idea. So this animation, let's see, it has a name called My Move. It happens over 5 seconds and it will be infinite. It will infinitely keep running. So here's the keyframes for My Move. So basically you name it whatever you want, but you reference the name in keyframes. And this is how the animation knows where to, what to animate and when. So here we go. That's a bit of a quick intro. W3 Schools is great. They have a lot of information about keyframes and CSS animation. So I recommend looking more into it. But we are going to do, let's see, we are going to move the hour and minute. So let's do the minute first. First, I'm going to say animation name is rotate. We'll just call it rotate for fun. And then while I'm at it, I'm going to just start the keyframe. Because I'm going to use the same kind of rotation animation for both of these. They're both going to use the same keyframe. So I'll put it below both of them. Keyframes. The name is rotate and open and close curly brackets. All right, so you saw the to and from, but we are going to use percentage. So I'm going to say at 0%, I want it to be something. And at 100%, I want it to be something else. Okay, so for us, we're going to do a transform rotate. So I'm going to say transform colon rotate parentheses. Make sure you don't have a space between the parentheses and rotate, and it'll start with 0 DEG for degrees, and it will end, I'm just going to copy and paste this, at 360 degrees. Okay, so we haven't quite finished, but let's just see if anything will happen. I don't think it will. There you go. It's waiting for us to give it a few more pieces of information. And one of them is animation duration. For now, let's just set it to 3s for seconds. You can also do milliseconds. So we could say 3000 milliseconds. If you want to do a half second, it would be 500 milliseconds. But we are going to do 3 seconds, which means I want you to do a full rotation over the 3 seconds time. Is this enough? Yes. So this is enough to get it going, but you can see there's a couple really weird things happening. One is that it only ran once. I have to hit refresh to get it to run. It has this sort of speed up, slow down thing, which is easing. The easing is set for this by default to, I believe, ease out. And also it's rotating from the wrong point. So we want it to be infinite. So let's say animation iteration count should be infinite. Okay. And then we want to change the easing to be linear. So animation timing function, I believe, should be linear. Okay, so now we've got a smoothly rotating bar. It's just not rotating the way we want it to. So the last thing we want to do is change the origin of the rotation. So by default, it'll be center, but we want to transform origin to be top, because that is where the circle is, the center circle. And you can see, I don't know if it's my illustration or maybe, just this isn't perfectly centered. For the sake of this demo, I'm not going to go crazy over it, but it may also be because there's a bit of a margin happening down here that I think is just because of some HTML funkiness adding space where it shouldn't be. But now that we have the minute hand, let's get the hour hand working. And you notice that it'll default to clockwise. You can change that orientation, but it's a clock. I want it to go clockwise. All right, so let's just copy all of the stuff in minute and add it to hour. And instead of 3, let's just do 12 so it's slower. I think we're going to have to change this origin because this line is horizontal, not vertical. So yeah, see how wacky it is? I don't even know. Yeah, it's kind of rotating from the center because it's basically the center of the line. So we want this to have a transform origin of left so that it's where the center dot is. All right. All right, there we go. Semi-good clock. If we wanted to slow it down, it is really fast right now. We could do something like maybe the minute hand goes, it takes 6 seconds to go around, and then we can times that by 12 and say that the hour hand is 72 seconds. And now we have like a more realistic, definitely sped up, but more realistic clock. in order to have this be functioning like a real clock, like to know what time it currently is and to keep the rotation in that same in the correct speed, we'd need a little JavaScript, and that's for a future episode. But I hope you have enjoyed this. If you have any issues, and oh yeah, and you can get rid of this funky, where is it? Funky border that we added. There we go. If you have any issues, the example files should hopefully enlighten you. And the other thing is always look for Visual Studio Code will have little red dots on the side. I'll show you what that might look like. So see how there's like a red line now here? There's also a big glaring red here. So look for the red lines, red squiggles. They're really helpful. All right. Thank you. See you again.